What happens when a former royal steps onto a late-night talk show assuming she'll be in control, only to find out that the host has no interest in playing by her rules? This is the account of Meghan Markle's now infamous interview with Stephen Colbert, a conversation that spiraled so far out of control that it left both the audience and production crew stunned. What started as a standard promotional appearance quickly descended into a tense, uncomfortable, and career-defining moment for Meghan. It was a live example of what can happen when public image meets unexpected scrutiny. The night had all the makings of a standard press circuit stop. Stephen Colbert's show had been enjoying strong ratings, and his producers knew they had struck gold when Meghan Markle confirmed her appearance. She was there to promote a new lifestyle brand, one centered on wellness and the idea of living authentically, buzzwords that Meghan often associated with her public image. Weeks of back and forth had taken place between her team and the show's producers, with strict guidance on acceptable talking points and suggested questions. The plan was clear: stick to safe, flattering subjects. As the taping began and Meghan stepped onto the stage in a refined cream suit worth thousands, everything seemed to go smoothly. Stephen greeted her with his signature warmth and humor. The audience responded with polite enthusiasm as she began discussing her new project. Meghan spoke passionately about her commitment to authenticity, explaining that she had always remained true to herself, even during her time within the royal family. Her remarks were eloquent and well-rehearsed, and for a moment, it looked like the interview would play out just as she and her team had envisioned. But something shifted when Stephen followed up. His demeanor remained calm, but there was a change in his tone, a slight pivot that signaled he was no longer following the agreed script. He leaned in and asked if she believed there was a difference between being silenced and being held accountable. It was the kind of question that cuts through public image, and Meghan's expression subtly changed. A flicker of discomfort flashed across her face, gone in a second, but noticed by those paying attention. Trying to regain control, she asked him to clarify what he meant. That's when he brought up the reports that had followed her for years, stories from former staff and colleagues, ranging from her acting days to her time in the royal family. Allegations of being difficult, of strained professional relationships, of tension behind the scenes. Meghan immediately dismissed them as unverified gossip, asserting that such narratives were driven by biased sources with ulterior motives. Stephen pressed gently but firmly. When multiple people from various points in one's life share similar stories, he argued, doesn't that at least warrant reflection? The temperature in the room dropped. Meghan's smile began to feel forced. The audience was quiet, the mood uncertain. From that point on, the dynamic was irreversibly altered. Meghan's tone grew more defensive. She accused Stephen of being more invested in spreading harmful narratives than in discussing her advocacy or the positive work she claimed to be focused on. She attempted to redirect the conversation, but Stephen stayed on course. He reminded her that part of being authentic meant being able to address difficult questions, not just the ones that reinforce your chosen image. This suggestion seemed to hit a nerve. Her polished demeanor began to unravel. She accused the host of subjecting her to a smear campaign and warned him that he was being used by the same media machinery that had long vilified her. Her frustration escalated rapidly. When Stephen pointed out that some of her critics were not anonymous but individuals who had worked with her directly, Meghan lost her composure entirely. Standing abruptly, she pushed her chair back with such force that it nearly toppled. Voices from the audience gasped. She announced that she had come onto the show in good faith but was being treated unfairly. Stephen, trying to regain control of the situation, suggested they change topics. But Meghan refused. She told him he had already shown his true colors. As the confrontation deepened, Stephen maintained his professionalism, defending his line of questioning as journalistic integrity. He wasn't trying to ambush her, he explained, but to have a real conversation. Meghan, however, interpreted every challenge as a personal attack. She insisted that she had sacrificed her former life for her principles, only to be met with more cruelty and scrutiny. The tension between them reached a breaking point. Meghan accused Stephen of being jealous, of using her for ratings because she represented real power and influence. Stephen, visibly stunned by the remark, asked her if she really believed that. Meghan affirmed it, claiming he was threatened by women who didn't need his validation. By this time, the control room was in chaos. Producers debated whether to cut to commercial. Camera operators struggled to keep up with Meghan as she began pacing. When Stephen suggested she sit and take a breath, she doubled down, accusing him of diminishing her value and twisting her narrative. He calmly explained that respect is earned, not demanded. that only seemed to provoke her more. In one final crescendo, she accused Stephen of being just like the figures in the royal palace who she said had gaslit and manipulated her. He calmly responded that asking questions based on public records wasn't gaslighting. It was part of being in the public eye. Meghan, growing more agitated by the second, pointed a finger at him and shouted that he didn't get to decide who belongs in the public space. She had every right to be there and to be respected. At that point, Stephen stood from his chair, still composed but clearly shaken. He informed her that the interview needed to end. Meghan responded with disbelief. She accused him of silencing her on national television. Security was quietly called, but Meghan refused to leave without making one final declaration to the audience and cameras. She turned to the crowd and claimed that they were witnessing a clear example of the kind of systemic silencing that women, especially women of color, faced in the media. She accused Stephen of staging a coordinated attack. Security stepped forward. She resisted, insisting she would leave on her own terms. On her way out, she declared that history would remember this moment and that this would stand as evidence of the hostility powerful women endure. Stephen watched as she walked out, the room silent except for the echo of her heels. When she was gone, he turned back to the audience with a tired expression. He made a light remark acknowledging the chaos of the moment, and the audience, now released from the grip of tension, responded with nervous laughter. As the show cut to commercial, Stephen collapsed into his chair. The energy had drained from the room. Behind the scenes, everyone was reeling from what had just taken place. The interview had turned into a spectacle, a live demonstration of a public persona clashing with a host who refused to follow a scripted narrative. This wasn't the empowering media moment Meghan had hoped for. It was a confrontation that exposed the fragile foundation of her brand. Her claims of strength and independence were overshadowed by the way she reacted to tough but reasonable questions. And while she walked out believing she had stood up for herself, others saw it as a meltdown broadcast in real time. In the aftermath, the debate continues. Was Meghan justified in her anger, or did she overreact to a line of questioning any public figure should be able to handle? Did Stephen go too far, or was he simply doing what interviewers are supposed to do? Ask questions that matter? What's certain is that this encounter left a mark on both of them. For Meghan, it may be remembered as a moment when her carefully constructed image began to truly fracture. And for Stephen, it was a test of professionalism few hosts ever face live on air.